The moment my son raised his glass, I knew something was wrong. The room was quiet. Crystal glasses clinked softly. Hundreds of guests were watching. Then he smiled and said the words that broke my heart. Tonight is about the people who truly supported me. My real family. Not once, not a single time, did he mention me. The man who paid for everything. The man who raised him. The man standing right there in the front row. And in that moment, surrounded by flowers, music, and laughter, I felt smaller than I had ever felt in my life. But what happened later that night changed everything. My name is Daniel. I'm 62 years old. For most of my life, I worked as a construction manager in a small town in Ohio. Nothing glamorous. Just long days, early mornings, and honest work. But everything I did for my son. His name is Eric. His mother passed away when he was 9. After that, it was just the two of us. I packed his lunches. I helped him with homework. I sat in the bleachers at every baseball game. Sometimes I was tired. Sometimes money was tight. But I never missed a moment that mattered. When Eric got accepted into college, I cried in my truck before telling him the news. Not because I was sad, because I was proud, and because I knew how much it would cost. Still, I found a way. Extra shifts, weekend jobs, delayed retirement. Every dollar I saved was for his future. Eric met Sarah during his final year of college. She came from a wealthy family. Very wealthy. Her parents owned several real estate companies. Their house looked like something out of a movie. Tall glass windows, marble floors, a driveway longer than my entire street. The first time I met them, I wore my best suit, but I could tell right away. To them, I didn't belong. Sarah's father shook my hand politely, but his eyes said something else. Judgment. Quiet, but very clear. Still, I ignored it, because Eric looked happy, and that was enough for me. The wedding planning started a year later. At first, Sarah's parents talked about organizing everything. They wanted a luxury resort wedding. 500 guests. Live orchestra. Private chefs. Designer decorations. The total cost was more than I had earned in 3 years. Then one evening, Eric called me. Dad, he said carefully, Sarah's parents think it would be nice if both families contribute. I knew what that meant. They wanted to see if I could keep up. So I told him something simple. I'll cover the wedding venue. There was silence on the phone, because the venue was the most expensive part. But I had already made the decision. I sold a piece of land I had owned for 20 years. It was supposed to be my retirement plan. But for my son's wedding, I didn't hesitate. The wedding took place at a beautiful lakeside estate. White flowers everywhere. Golden lights hanging from tall trees. A stage built over the water. It looked magical. Guests arrived in luxury cars. Designer dresses. Perfect suits. Everything felt expensive. I stood near the entrance, greeting people. Some smiled. Some barely looked at me. Sarah's relatives mostly spoke among themselves. Their conversations were about investments, vacations, and yachts. Not one of them asked what I did for a living. But I didn't mind, because I wasn't there for them. I was there for Eric. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Eric looked confident. Sarah looked stunning. The sun set behind the lake as they exchanged vows. People wiped tears from their eyes. Even I felt emotional. I thought about the little boy who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during long car rides. And now, he was starting his own life. I was proud. Truly proud. Then came the reception. Music played. Guests laughed. Wine glasses were constantly refilled. After dinner, it was time for speeches. Sarah's father spoke first. He talked about family legacy, about success, about tradition. The guests applauded loudly. Then the best man spoke. Funny stories, college memories, more applause. And finally, Eric stood up. He picked up the microphone and raised his glass. This wedding, he said, smiling, wouldn't have been possible without the people who truly believed in me. The room grew quiet. My new family welcomed me like one of their own. He looked toward Sarah's parents. They showed me what success looks like. More applause. Then he laughed softly. I learned so much from them. Still nothing about me. I waited. Maybe he would mention me at the end. But he didn't. Instead, he said something that made my chest tighten. I'm grateful to finally feel like I belong to something bigger. The crowd clapped. People stood up. The band started playing again. And I sat there frozen. Across the table, a woman was watching me carefully. Her name was Linda. She was the wedding planner. Middle-aged. Sharp eyes. Very calm. She leaned closer and whispered gently, "Are you all right?" I nodded. Of course. But she knew that wasn't true. Some people notice things others miss. Linda was one of those people. Later that evening, she found me standing near the lake. The music from the reception floated through the air. "Mr. Daniel," she said softly, "I hope you don't mind me asking, but did you help organize the wedding?" I smiled. A little. She studied my face. "I reviewed the payment records earlier today." I stayed quiet. Then she said something surprising. "You paid for the entire venue." I nodded. "Yes." She sighed slowly. "That's a very generous gift." I shrugged. It's his big day. But Linda didn't walk away. Instead, she asked a question that stayed with me. "Do you think he understands that?" I didn't answer. Because honestly, I didn't know. The night continued. Dancing, music, laughter. But something felt different now. Like a quiet tension beneath the celebration. And then something unexpected happened. Near the stage, a large projector screen had been set up. Originally, it was supposed to display childhood photos of the couple. But the presentation hadn't played yet. Guests started gathering around. Someone announced another short speech. And suddenly, my name appeared on the screen. I looked up confused. Linda was standing near the control table. She gave me a small nod. The room slowly became quiet again. Then she spoke into the microphone. "I apologize for the interruption," she said calmly. "But before the evening ends, there's something important we should recognize." The first slide appeared. A photo of a small boy holding a baseball glove. Eric at age 10. The next photo. Eric graduating high school. Then college. Then the wedding invitation. Under each photo were simple words. "Paid by Dad." The room went silent. Linda continued speaking. "Behind every beautiful celebration, there are people who make sacrifices." Another slide appeared. A copy of the venue contract. My name was at the bottom. Paid in full. Guests started whispering. Sarah's father looked stunned. Eric stared at the screen, confused. Linda spoke gently. "Tonight celebrates love and family." She paused. "But sometimes the quietest support deserves the loudest recognition." Then she turned toward me. "Mr. Daniel, would you please come to the stage?" I hesitated. Every eye in the room was on me. But slowly, I walked forward. The microphone felt heavier than I expected. I looked at Eric, then at the guests. And finally, I spoke. "Good evening." My voice was calm. I didn't plan to say anything tonight. A few guests nodded quietly. But since I'm standing here, I'll just share something simple. I paused. I raised Eric alone for most of his life. No drama, just truth. He's always been a bright kid. A small smile. And today, he married a wonderful woman. Sarah looked down emotional. "I didn't pay for this wedding to be thanked." The room stayed silent. "I did it because that's what parents do." Another pause. "But there's one thing I hope Eric remembers." I looked at him directly. Success isn't measured by the size of the room you enter. Silence. It's measured by the people who helped you get there. Eric's eyes began to fill with tears. I placed the microphone back on the stand. "No anger," I said quietly. "No resentment. Just a gentle smile. Only pride." Then I stepped down from the stage. The room remained silent for several seconds. Then people started clapping. Slow at first, then louder. Soon the entire room was standing. But I didn't look back. I simply walked outside toward the lake. A few minutes later, footsteps approached. Eric. He stood beside me. Neither of us spoke for a while. Finally, he said softly, "Dad, I'm sorry." I looked at him. Not angry, just calm. Sometimes, I told him, we don't realize what matters until someone shows us. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I should have said it. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "You still can." Later that night, Eric asked for the microphone again. This time, his voice trembled. "I made a mistake earlier." The room listened. "My father gave me everything." He paused. "And tonight, I forgot to say thank you." Then he looked at me. "I love you, Dad." The applause that followed felt different, warmer, more real. And for the first time that night, my heart felt whole again. Life has a quiet way of teaching lessons. Not through anger, not through revenge, but through truth. Respect cannot be demanded. But when it's shown with dignity, it becomes impossible to ignore. And sometimes, the calmest voice in the room is the one people remember the longest. If this story resonated with you, let me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.